The world keeps testing your peace of mind. Marcus Aurelius said the soul takes on the color of its thoughts, that your inner world is the only real fortress. That's an old idea, but it speaks to something we still want now, an unshakable mind, something that can face anything. But then the question is, how do you know? How do you know if you're actually building that kind of stoic resilience, or if you're just thinking about building it? So today, we take that philosophy and turn it into a mirror. A personal one. You'll get a checklist, 25 points, to measure your own progress toward genuine mental strength. We'll start with how you handle frustration. We'll go all the way to how you view your own mortality, and we'll look for the subtle shifts, the changes in thinking that signal real growth. This isn't about judging yourself. It's about honest self-reflection, to see which of your current reactions might already be signs of change, profound inner change, and to ask what it feels like. When your happiness, finally, is no longer something you negotiate, you're in traffic, completely stopped, and you feel that tension start to rise, the frustration beginning to boil. But then you notice the thought, you watch it form, and instead of feeding it, instead of getting angry about how unfair it is or how late you'll be, you just let it pass. You look out the window, you take a breath, the traffic hasn't moved, but your internal war with it has ended. That's the foundational practice, the bedrock. Stopping the argument with reality. Epictetus put it clearly. He said, "Make it your study to welcome every event, not as a disaster, but as an opportunity for a different kind of start to separate your worth from those outside signals. Something quiet happens inside. You're not living in someone else's opinion anymore. You become the one who holds your own inner space." The Stoics had a word for things like praise, status, material success. They called them indifference. Not that they don't matter at all, but because they aren't good or bad by themselves. They're preferred or not preferred. They don't define your character. Your virtue, your courage, your justice, your wisdom, your discipline, that's the only real good. Everything else is just material, something to practice that virtue with. Looking for validation from the crowd is like asking a blind person to judge a painting. They might have a guess, but their opinion doesn't tell you anything about the art. Seneca wrote about this. He said the applause of the majority is often just noise. To live for it is to hand the keys to your happiness to a jury that changes its mind. You can see it now on social media, where every post can feel like a vote on whether you're likable. At work, where a review can feel like a verdict on your whole value. In relationships, where a disagreement can feel like a rejection of you. The mind that doesn't shake, it takes part in these worlds, but it doesn't take its identity from them. It posts a thought because it thinks the thought has value, not because it wants likes. It gets feedback at work as data, a way to improve a skill, not as a scorecard of its worth. It sees a relationship disagreement as two perspectives that need to line up, not as a personal attack. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about where you get your confidence from. A deeper well. You act with integrity because it's right, not because you'll be seen doing it. You pursue excellence for the craft itself, not for the trophy. Praise, if it comes, is a pleasant extra. Criticism, if it arrives, might have useful information, but neither one can rebuild you or demolish you. So here's a thing to sit with. Find one area right now where your self-esteem is too tied to an outside result. Is it your job title, how many followers you have, the approval of one specific person? Just naming it is the first step of pulling back. See it for what it is, a preferred indifferent, not the source of your goodness. Your worth was never in that thing to begin with. It was always in how you choose to move, no matter the applause. This isn't pessimism. It's a way to find a kind of peace ahead of time. People hear negative visualization and think it's just worrying on purpose. But the Stoics had this exercise, premeditatio malorum, and worry is frantic, it drains you. This is different, it's a calm rehearsal, it makes you stronger. There are two reasons to do it. First, it takes the shock out of something hard. If you visit a problem in your mind before it happens, you know the terrain. Then when you face it, it's less of a terrifying unknown, more like a challenge you've already started to navigate. The second reason might be more important. It builds a deep gratitude for what you have now. By thinking about how temporary things are, people, possessions, your situation, you stop taking them for granted. Seneca was good at this. He called it rehearsing poverty. He would live on plain food for days, wear his oldest clothes. He wasn't punishing himself. He was proving to his own mind that he could be content with less. He wrote about mentally rehearsing the loss of status, losing loved ones, even his own eventual rest. He didn't do it to feel sad. He did it to appreciate the present fiercely, to see that his core self could endure no matter what changed outside. So what does this look like now, day to day? It's not about dwelling on disasters, it's small rehearsals. Before a hard conversation, you might picture the other person getting defensive or angry. You don't dwell on the feeling, you just see it happening, and then you see yourself listening calmly, not reacting with heat. You're getting your nervous system ready to stay steady. Or for gratitude, you're drinking your morning coffee, you pause for a second, you think about what the day would feel like without it, if the machine was broken. If there were no beans, you don't stay in that sense of lack. You come right back to the present, to the warmth of the cup in your hands, and you taste it more fully because you've acknowledged it could be gone. Here's something to try. Think of a common daily inconvenience. Your internet goes out for an hour. You miss your usual train, a small misunderstanding with a friend. Pick one for just 30 seconds, visualize it happening, see the details, then, instead of following the frustration, plan your calm response. What's a constructive, simple thing you could do? Maybe you read a book instead. Maybe you take the later train and use the wait to listen to something. Maybe you send a clarifying text. You're not predicting doom. You're quietly assembling your tools, and in that quiet assembly, the fear of these small things starts to dissolve. You're not just a passenger hoping for smooth seas anymore. You're becoming the captain who knows how to sail in any weather. A developing Stoic mind stops seeing walls. It starts seeing climbing frames. That's the art of the flip. You take a blockage, a frustration, a failure, and you rotate it mentally until you see the handholds. It's not about pretending something's easy. It's about asking one question. What does this situation make possible for my character that an easy situation could not? Marcus Aurelius wrote it down. The obstacle to the action becomes the action itself. What stands in the way becomes the way. Think about that, not in spite of the obstacle, but because of it. The thing blocking your path gets redesignated as the path. That's an active reframe. It requires a shift from victim to student. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? You start asking, what is this asking of me? Is it asking for patience, for courage, for creative thinking, for humility? The specific virtue you need is often highlighted by the specific obstacle. A delayed flight isn't just wasted time. It's a forced space to practice patience, to practice presence. A cancelled project at work isn't just a setback. It's a lesson in detachment from outcomes, and it's an invitation to practice perseverance with whatever comes next. A difficult conversation isn't just an emotional minefield. It's a training ground for compassion, for listening, for the courage to be vulnerable. The modern analogy is physical training. No one goes to the gym hoping the weights are light. The resistance is the entire point. That's what triggers the growth. The developing Stoic mind starts to treat life's psychological resistances the same way. That difficult person in your life, they aren't just a nuisance, they are the weight for your patience, for your tolerance, for your ability to set boundaries with grace. So here's a practical prompt. Look at your life right now and name one current obstacle. It doesn't have to be monumental, a tight deadline, a financial pinch, a recurring annoyance. Now, brainstorm one potential virtue this obstacle could help you develop if you engaged with it as training. If it's the tight deadline, maybe it's focused efficiency. If it's the financial pinch, maybe it's creativity, resourcefulness. If it's the annoying situation, maybe it's the skill of maintaining your inner calm despite the noise. By doing this, you stop waiting for perfect conditions to become the person you want to be. You start using the imperfect conditions right in front of you as your building materials. The wall hasn't moved, but you've just spotted the first rung of the ladder built into its side. You feel the heat of anger or the chill of fear. It's a physical signal. And you pause, that silence you create is the entire battleground. It's the space where reaction ends and response begins. Most of our daily turmoil comes from skipping that space. Something happens and we're launched by emotion, like a pinball struck by a plunger. The developing Stoic mind works to widen that gap, to insert a moment of choice where there was once only reflex. This is the practical muscle of self-awareness. The Stoics called it the discipline of assent. Before you buy into a first impression, before you decide an event is terrible or a person is malicious, you examine it. You hold it up to the light of your reason. Epictetus laid this out plainly. He said people are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. The rude email isn't what upsets you. It's your immediate judgment that this is a personal attack, that it's unfair, that it demands an angry counterattack. That judgment is what you have the power to question in that pause. Physiologically, you can feel it. Your heart rate jumps, your jaw tightens, your thoughts start to race toward defense or blame. The discipline is to notice these signs not as commands to act, but as alarms to stop, to take that one deep breath. In that breath, you step back from being the emotion and become the observer of it. You break the cascade. Think of a common trigger. A colleague sends a terse, critical message. The reactive path is immediate. Your face flushes. You fire off a defensive reply, maybe sing others to prove your point. You spend the next hour stewing, replaying the injustice. Your productivity is gone. Now, the responsive path. You read the email. You feel the flush. And you pause, you close the tab, you take a walk, you ask yourself what is actually being said here. Is there any useful feedback buried in the poor delivery? What is my goal, to win an argument or to solve a problem? An hour later, you reply with clarity, not heat. You address the work issue. You might even note that the tone felt harsh, but you do it calmly. The situation is de-escalated, your dignity is intact, your energy is preserved. The gap turns you from a reactor into a responder. You are no longer a puppet whose strings are pulled by every external event. You become the one who decides which strings to pull. So here's a simple practice for tomorrow. In any moment of tension, a disagreement, a frustration, a spike of anxiety, consciously take one full, deep breath before you speak or act. In that breath, reclaim your agency. That breath is the space where your unshakable mind does its quiet, powerful work. The mundane can start to feel miraculous. A hot shower is a luxury. Your own breath, its reliable rhythm, feels like a quiet miracle. And this isn't just a passing positive thought. It's a structural change. In how you see the world, a Stoic mind learns to find its deepest wealth in what's already present, in the most ordinary things, because it knows none of it is guaranteed. This practice is the direct positive counterpart to that negative visualization, that morning rehearsal of loss. It isn't meant to breed fear, it's meant to prime the pump. For a profound evening gratitude, you spend a moment considering life without your health, without your home, without the people you see every day, and you don't return to those things with the same dullness. You return with fresh eyes. You see them as the gifts they are, not just background furniture. Marcus Aurelius filled his personal journal with this. He didn't just list grand achievements, he expressed gratitude for his body's basic functions still working, for the lessons, good and bad, from people in his past. He wrote down the simple virtues he saw in others. He was training his attention to see the abundance in the basics, to counter that human tendency. The tendency toward wanting the next new thing. Our culture pulls us the opposite way. It's a machine of constant wanting. It whispers that happiness is in the upgrade. The next purchase, the better version of what you already have. That whisper makes the ordinary seem boring, insufficient. Stoic gratitude is turning down that volume. It's choosing to find the extraordinary in the sufficient, in the warm meal that nourishes you, in the safe walk home under a streetlight, in the few minutes of quiet with a cup of tea before the day begins. These aren't small things, they are the fundamental conditions for a good life, and they are so easily missed. So here's a simple exercise, a direct application. Tonight before you sleep, don't reach for your phone. Instead, lie there in the dark and mentally list 3 ordinary things from your day, but don't just name them. See them for what they are: the comfortable bed you're resting in, the conversation with a friend that made you laugh, the fact that you had clean water to drink all day. Sit with each one for just a breath. Acknowledge each is a temporary gift. This isn't about forcing a feeling. It's about a quiet recognition. Over time, this practice rewires your default setting. From scarcity to abundance, you stop overlooking the foundation because you're too busy dreaming about the next floor. You realize the foundation itself is everything. And in that realization, a deep contentment begins to grow, not from getting more, but from fully seeing what you already have. You stop saying, "He made me feel." You start with, "I chose to feel." That's a seismic shift. It's the moment you move from being an effect of the world to being a cause in your own life. That's radical ownership, and it's the absolute core of Stoic freedom. It's not about taking on guilt for things outside your control. It's about claiming authority over the one thing that's always yours, your faculty of choice. Your judgment. Epictetus laid this down 2,000 years ago. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. The event is neutral. Your interpretation creates the emotion, and that interpretation is yours. You authored it, so you can edit it. Think about a simple example: a gray, rainy Monday morning. One person wakes up, looks outside, and thinks, "What a miserable day. This weather is ruining my mood." They carry that all day, feeling sluggish and sour. Another person wakes up to the same gray sky. They think, "It's a perfect day for staying focused indoors, for that cozy feeling with a hot drink." Their mood is calm, even content. The weather didn't change. The only thing that changed was the story they told themselves about it, the judgment they passed, and that judgment was their own choice, even if it felt automatic. Now apply this to something more charged, a workplace conflict. Your manager gives you critical feedback in a meeting in front of others. The reactive story is, "He embarrassed me on purpose. He made me feel small and angry. Now I'm going to have a bad day because of him." The ownership story pauses that blame. It says his words and tone were his choice. My interpretation and my emotional reaction are mine. I judged his public criticism as a personal attack. That judgment sparked my anger. I can now choose a different judgment. I can see his feedback, however poorly delivered, as data. I can choose to feel determined to improve rather than humiliated. I can choose to address the delivery privately later from a place of calm. The situation hasn't magically become pleasant, but you've reclaimed your agency within it. You are no longer a passive victim of someone else's behavior. You are the active author of your response. This is where responsibility transforms from a burden into a liberation. It's heavy to think you must control everything. It's light to realize you only need to command your own mind. So here's a practical prompt. Think back over the last week. Identify one situation where you felt a negative emotion and immediately blamed an external factor. The traffic made me late and stressed. My partner's comment made me feel insecure. The news made me anxious. Now reframe it. Strip away the blame. What was the judgment you made in that moment? I judged the traffic as a personal injustice, therefore I chose stress. I judged my partner's words as a rejection, therefore I chose insecurity. I judged the world news as an immediate threat, therefore I chose anxiety. See the power in that reframe. It doesn't excuse poor behavior in others. It doesn't mean the external event is okay. It simply places the lever of change back into your own hands. If your emotional state is your choice, then you are never without a path forward. You hold the key to your own peace, no matter what lock the world tries to put on the door. Headlines go by, each one tries to pull you in. You feel that tug, that rise in your chest, but you notice it and you make a choice. You choose not to be swept away. That's detached awareness. It's applying that same discipline to the flood of information. The Stoics cared about what we feed our minds. Seneca wrote about avoiding the crowd. Not just physically, psychologically. He said the opinions of the many are turbulent, chaotic. Today, that crowd isn't in the square, it's in your pocket. On your screens, a constant stream of opinions, alarming events from everywhere. To consume this without detachment is to let your peace be held hostage. By events outside your control, it's to confuse being informed with being agitated. The Stoic mind draws a distinction. It wants to understand the world, not to be hijacked by every report of its turmoil. This isn't indifference, it's mental hygiene. You set boundaries because your attention is finite. Your emotional balance is a finite resource. You start to ask a different question. When you see a news story or a social media storm, you don't ask how it makes you feel. You ask what it requires of your action. Is this within my sphere of influence? If it is, even a little, then the information has use. It can guide a donation, a letter, a change in what you buy, a compassionate talk. If it's not, if it's a complex conflict far away or a scandal you can't affect, then your role changes. Your role is to understand it, maybe, but not to let it colonize your nervous system. Doing that adds no value to the situation, and it takes away from your capacity for good. Where you actually live, so what does this look like? It might mean setting a specific time to check the news, instead of letting notifications interrupt you. It means approaching that time with an active mind, not passive scrolling. You read a distressing report, you feel the shock, you pause, you ask, what's the core fact here? What context is missing? What's the intended effect of this headline? And most importantly, what's my sphere of influence? Often, the answer is your own understanding. Your own conduct. Your duty is to not spread panic, to not add to the digital anger, to keep your clarity, so you can be a point of stability for the people around you. For one day, try an audit. Notice each time you reach for news or social media. Note the emotional fingerprint it leaves, a spike of anger, a wave of worry, a sense of futility. Then, at the end of the day, ask a sober question. How much of that emotional spending turned into meaningful action? The gap you find there, that's the space where your mind can build a calmer relationship with the world. It chooses to be a lighthouse, observing the storm, not a piece of driftwood tossed in it. You start to see the person who hurt you as someone who's just wrong, not evil. That's a big shift. It takes it out of the personal into something more like a principle. You're not being attacked, you're watching someone make a basic error in judgment. The Stoic idea, which goes back to Socrates, is straightforward. Nobody chooses what's bad for them on purpose. People do what seems right to them in that moment, what seems good or necessary. Even the worst actions come from a kind of distorted math, a wrong calculation about what matters. They've confused a smaller good, maybe a moment of pleasure, or getting even, or some advantage, for the real good, which is living with virtue. acting with justice, courage, wisdom. When you really take that in, resentment starts to run out of air. You're not saying what they did was okay. You're identifying the cause, and the cause is almost always ignorance. A lack of understanding. Marcus Aurelius wrote this to himself over and over. He'd remind himself that people can only act from what they know right then. That getting angry at someone for not having a quality they never had is pointless. It's like being angry at a fig tree for not producing olives. The person doing wrong is operating from a broken logic. They're seeing through a lens that's already cracked. So forgiveness, in this sense, isn't saying their action was acceptable. It's a clear recognition of their mistake. And more than that, it's how you take your own freedom back. Holding onto resentment is like swallowing poison and waiting for the other person to feel sick. You tie yourself to the past event, going over the hurt again and again. Stoic forgiveness is just deciding to put that weight down, to stop letting someone else's bad judgment keep deciding how you feel inside. Think about a personal betrayal. A close friend tells a secret you gave them. The hurt is real. The first story you tell yourself is, they betrayed me, they're a bad person, I can't trust them. The Stoic reframe asks you to look for the error. What was the mistake in their judgment? Maybe they mixed up the temporary social reward of sharing gossip for the real good of loyalty. They didn't understand the deeper value of trust. Maybe they were coming from their own insecurity, thinking this would make people like them more. Seeing that doesn't take the hurt away, but it changes it. It turns it from a personal wound into a human error, a tragedy of poor judgment. Then you can decide, end the relationship, or rebuild it with new boundaries, but you do it from understanding, not from a wound that's still festering. Now take it to a larger scale. A public figure makes a choice that causes a lot of harm. The easy way is to call them evil. The Stoic way is harder. It asks, what false good were they chasing? What error in their thinking made this seem like the right path? Was it a belief that short-term gain matters more than long-term well-being? Was it not seeing how people are connected? This view doesn't mean you stop holding people accountable. It means you understand what the fault actually is. It's a fault of wisdom, not mustache-twirling villainy. That makes your response more precise and a lot less draining. So here's something to try quietly. Think of someone you resent, even a little, from long ago or recently. Then try to put into words calmly, like you're studying a case, what their specific error in judgment might have been. What smaller good were they chasing? What did they not understand about virtue or consequences or your humanity? Don't do it to excuse them. Do it to see the hook for what it is, something made from confusion. And in that seeing, you might feel the chain around your own heart start to give way. Your own peace is worth too much to leave it in the hands of someone else's mistaken math. Your sense of sufficiency grows and your list of wants gets smaller. This isn't about deprivation. It's a quiet discovery that chasing less can feel like gaining more. The modern world runs on desire. It tells you happiness is just one more purchase away, one more achievement, one more upgrade. The Stoic mind starts to hear that message differently. Not as a promise, but as a kind of perpetual anxiety. A trap of always wanting the next thing, so you never truly have this thing, right here, right now. The Stoics used categories to make sense of this. Some things are natural and preferred. Food when you're hungry, shelter, health, friendship, these are in accord with our nature. It's reasonable to prefer them, but then there are the vain desires, the craving for luxury just for its own sake, the hunger for fame, the need for constant validation. The latest gadget, not because it serves a function, but because it signals something. These desires have no natural limit. They're bottomless, and as Epictetus warned, if you don't curb your desires, you'll remain a slave to them. Your freedom is measured by what you can walk away from. That's where voluntary discomfort comes in. It's not self-punishment. It's a gentle proof to yourself. You choose the simpler meal, you take the cold shower, you leave your phone at home for an afternoon. You do it to show your own nervous system a quiet truth that you're okay without the extra comfort. That the desire for it doesn't have the final say. You're proving you're not controlled by the craving, and in that proof you find a profound confidence. You're no longer a puppet of your wants. You can feel this shift in everyday moments. Walking through a store surrounded by shiny new objects, the old pull is there, a faint whisper. But you notice it and you let it pass. You feel no compulsion to possess. You see an ad for a luxury car, and instead of envy, you see it as a vehicle. A tool, the story it's selling of status, of identity. It just doesn't land with the same weight anymore, or you make a conscious choice. You need a new jacket. The functional, durable one will do. You don't need the one with the prestigious label, because the label adds nothing to the jacket's ability to keep you warm. That choice feels light, it feels free. So think back 1 year. What was one thing you intensely desired? A specific job title, a piece of technology, a level of income, a relationship milestone. How important does that thing feel to you now? Has its shine faded? If it has, that's not failure, it's growth. You're seeing through the illusion of that desire. You're recognizing that your peace was never inside that object or that outcome to begin with. Your contentment is being quietly relocated from the external world of more to the internal world of enough. Silence and solitude start to feel like a refuge. In a world that's always on, choosing quiet can be an act of rebellion. It means your inner world is becoming a place you want to be. The Stoics saw solitude as a necessary retreat, a space to return to yourself, to sort through the day, to realign with your principles. Seneca wrote about this. He said you must retreat into yourself as often as you can. A person at peace with themselves, he noted, is never less alone than when alone. That's the core of it. If you can't bear your own company, you're constantly fleeing. You fill every empty moment with noise, a podcast, a scroll, a video, because the silence feels uncomfortable. It feels empty, but that emptiness is just space, space where your own thoughts can finally be heard. And if those thoughts are chaotic or self-critical, of course you'd want to drown them out. The developing Stoic mind works to change that, not by silencing the thoughts, but by ordering them, by making the inner conversation something you can sit with, something you can learn from. Think about the evening examination. It's a classic Stoic practice. At the end of the day, you sit in quiet, you review your actions. Where you acted with virtue, where you fell short, not to beat yourself up, but to learn, to plan for a better tomorrow. That practice requires you can be alone with your reflections. It requires you see this time as necessary maintenance for your soul. The modern contrast is stark. We have a device in our pocket that offers an endless escape from any moment of potential boredom. Standing in line, waiting, the few minutes before sleep, the reflex is to reach, to scroll, to consume. It's a habit of distraction. And it quietly teaches your mind that your own company isn't valuable, that your inner world isn't worth exploring. So the shift is subtle, it's profound. It's when you choose to take a walk and leave the headphones at home. You just walk, you notice the sounds, you notice the flow of your own thoughts without trying to direct them. You're not trying to achieve anything, you're practicing being present with yourself. Or you sit with a journal for 10 minutes. Not to write a masterpiece, but to let your mind untangle itself on the page. To see what's really there beneath the surface noise. The ability to do this comfortably measures your inner order. If your mind is a storm of unresolved worries, solitude will feel like being trapped. But if you've been practicing the earlier signs, pausing, reframing obstacles, taking ownership, your mind starts to settle. The storm calms, and in that calm, solitude becomes rich. It becomes a source of strength, a place where you reconnect with what you truly value, away from the expectations and noise of the world. Here's a simple challenge. Sometime in the next day, carve out 15 minutes. Find a quiet space, no devices, no music, just you. Sit comfortably or take a slow walk. For those 15 minutes, simply observe. Notice the thoughts that arise. Don't judge them or follow them. Just note their quality. Are they anxious? Are they planning? Are they reflective? There's no right answer. The goal isn't to have profound thoughts. The goal is to become comfortable with the thinker having them. This small space of quiet is where you stop running from yourself. You start building a friendship with your own mind, and that friendship is the foundation for everything else. You realize your happiness isn't something the world gets to vote on. It becomes settled, something internal you carry, not something you hope to find in the next achievement or the next thing you own. That's the Stoic idea of eudaimonia. A word that gets translated as flourishing or the good life, but it's not a fleeting feeling of pleasure. It's deeper than that. It's an active state. Living in accordance with your nature as a rational being, a social being. It's the sum of your choices to act with wisdom, courage, justice, self-control. And because it's built from your own virtue, from your own judgments and actions, it's unassailable. No external event can take it from you. Marcus Aurelius wrote this down privately. He said it simply: the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts, not the quantity of your possessions. Your flourishing is an inside job. Think of two people facing the same hardship, a serious health diagnosis, or losing a job they've had for years. The first person is shattered. Their world collapses. Because their sense of self, their happiness, was built on a foundation of their health or their title. And when that foundation shakes, everything falls. The second person is deeply affected, of course. They feel the weight, the sadness, the challenge, but they aren't destroyed. Their core sense of worth, their capacity for meaning, isn't tied to that one external condition. They can grieve the loss and still find moments of dignity, moments of connection, quiet courage in the middle of it. They can ask, what does this new reality ask of me? How can I practice patience here, or resilience, or grace? Their happiness, their ability to find some peace and purpose, has moved inside. It's become non-negotiable with fortune. That's the ultimate application of all the other signs. When you stop arguing with reality, you accept the diagnosis as the new terrain. When you're indifferent to praise and blame, your worth isn't shattered by losing a title. When you practice negative visualization, you've already rehearsed the possibility of loss, so it's less of a shock. When you see the obstacle as the way, the hardship becomes the material for practicing your deepest virtues. Your internal happiness is the final product of all that training. So here's a quiet prompt. Finish this sentence in your mind right now. I would be happy if I got that promotion. I would be happy if I lost 20 pounds. I would be happy if I found a partner. I would be happy if my children were always safe. Now look at the condition you named. Is that condition truly, fully within your control? You can work for the promotion, but the final decision belongs to others. You can eat well and exercise, but your body's response has its own nature. You can be open to a relationship, but you can't control another person's heart. You can care for your children, but you can't control the entire world they walk into. If your happiness is waiting on that external condition, you've placed it in the hands of fortune. You've made it negotiable. The shift happens when you relocate the source. I can be happy. I can act with integrity and courage and wisdom while striving for the promotion. I can be happy by treating my body with respect and enjoying its strength while pursuing health. I can be happy by being a loving and present person whether a partner arrives or not. The goal doesn't vanish, but your peace is no longer its hostage. Your flourishing becomes the manner of your pursuit, not its distant prize. You start thinking more about how you take the shot, not where the arrow ends up. The Stoics had this image, the archer. They used it to make a point. An archer can do everything possible. pick the right bow, train for years, watch for the wind, aim carefully, release with a steady hand. All of that is up to them, but once the arrow's in the air, a gust could take it, the target might move, the arrow could have a flaw. Hitting the bullseye, that's not entirely in the archer's hands. Cicero said the Stoic's job is to commit fully to the aiming, the effort, the skill, the intention, and then accept whatever happens with calm. Hitting is preferred, but it's not the good. The good was in the excellence of the shot itself. That goes against how we often think now. Your worth becomes your salary. Your success is your title. Your talent is your follower count. When you live there, you're handing your self-esteem over to a chaotic world, to variables you can't ever fully control. The developing Stoic mind makes a shift. It redefines success as fidelity to the process. It asks one main question: did I do everything within my influence with integrity, focus, and skill? If the answer is yes, then the project is already a success. No matter the external verdict, think of a job application. You can research the company. Tailor your resume, write a thoughtful cover letter, prepare for the interview, practice your responses, show up on time, dressed right, engage with real interest. That's your shot, that's your aim. The outcome, whether you get the job, depends on an internal candidate you didn't know about, a hiring manager's bias, a sudden budget freeze. To tie your whole sense of competence to that result is to give your power away. The Stoic approach is to pour your best into the preparation and the interview. Then, after you've sent the thank you note, you mentally release the outcome. You've done your part. The rest isn't yours to decide. Apply this to creative work. An artist can dedicate themselves to their craft. They can study, practice, pour their heart into a piece and share it. That is their aim. The outcome, whether it sells, goes viral, gets praise, is subject to public taste, algorithmic chance, cultural trends. If the artist's joy is only in the reception, that's constant anxiety. But if their primary satisfaction is in the act of creation itself, in the integrity of their effort, then no external silence can take that away. The work itself becomes the reward. This applies to parenting, to sports, to any endeavor where results are uncertain. A parent's control lies in their presence, their guidance, their love, their example. That is their aim. The ultimate choices their child makes as an adult, the path they walk, is the child's own. To think a parent can control the outcome is a recipe for endless worry, for strained relationships. The focus has to remain on the quality of the effort, the love given, the lessons offered. So here's an exercise. Take a current goal, something you care about. Write it down, draw a line down the center of a page. On the left, list every single action, every preparation, every attitude that's within your direct control. On the right, list the desired outcomes, the results, the reactions from others that aren't fully within your control. Your energy, your peace, your sense of accomplishment must live almost entirely in the left column. The right column is just where you observe the world's response. You can hope for it, work toward it, but you cannot demand it. Your shot is your responsibility. Where it lands is not, and in that separation there's a quiet freedom. You feel the weight of each hour. You choose to spend it wisely. It's not about anxiety. It's a respect for time because it's limited. The Stoics called this Memento Mori, a reminder of mortality, but they didn't see it as dark. They saw it as a focusing tool. A lens that clarifies what's trivial and what's essential. Seneca wrote an essay on the shortness of life. He argued life isn't short, we make it short. We squander it, he said it plainly. It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough if we use it properly. The point is urgency, not despair. When you internalize that your time is finite, every yes becomes a conscious choice, because every yes to one thing is a no to something else. You start to audit your hours with a new seriousness. That hour scrolling through a social media feed, comparing your life to others, was that the best use of your one precious resource? Or that hour learning a few chords on a guitar, or having a deep conversation with your child, or reading a book that changed your perspective? The contrast isn't about judging leisure. It's about distinguishing between passive consumption that leaves you empty and active engagement that adds to your life. This shift changes your daily decisions. You might still watch a show for relaxation, but you do it intentionally, not as a default. You become more protective of your mornings and evenings, the bookends of your day. You start to see small pockets of time, the 15 minutes waiting at the doctor's office, the 20-minute commute, not as dead space to kill, but as found moments. A chance to listen to a podcast, to plan your day, to simply observe the world. So here's a reflective prompt. Let's do a quick calculation. Assume you sleep 8 hours a night. That leaves 112 waking hours in a week. Now, how many of those hours are spent on autopilot, on tasks that feel obligatory but meaningless, on entertainment that doesn't replenish you, on worry about things you cannot change? And how many of those 112 hours are deliberately invested in what truly matters? In nurturing relationships, in developing your character, in contributing to something larger? You don't need to change everything at once, but seeing the math can be the catalyst. It turns the abstract reminder of mortality into a practical guide. Your time is the one currency you cannot earn more of. You spend it like the treasure it is. A compliment comes in and you feel that warmth, but it doesn't swell you up. A criticism stings, but it doesn't collapse you. Your own compass stays steady because you've stopped letting other people's words set your true north. That's the practical result of that earlier work on indifference. It's knowing, in a lived way, that your worth isn't a public opinion poll. The Stoics called both praise and blame external indifference. They're impressions from outside about your actions or your character, but they aren't the actions themselves or the character itself. They're data. Sometimes useful, often noisy, but never the final verdict on your virtue. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this. He said it's entirely possible to be a good person without anyone realizing it. Remember that, and elsewhere he told himself not to be uplifted by applause or knocked down by blame. Your job is to keep doing the right work, to be praiseworthy, as Epictetus said, not necessarily to be praised. Think about that difference. To be praiseworthy is an internal condition. It's the quiet knowledge that you acted with integrity, with courage, with fairness, as best you could in that moment. That knowledge belongs to you. It's secure. Praise is just someone else noticing it, or worse, someone else misunderstanding your action and applauding for the wrong reasons. To need the praise is to outsource your sense of accomplishment. It makes you dependent. Now picture a workplace. Your team finishes a major project. In the meeting, your manager singles you out for extraordinary praise, credits you with the success. The old self might swell with pride, might let that moment define your value. The developing Stoic mind accepts the thanks politely, but inside it knows the truth. It knows the success was a team effort. It knows its own contribution was solid, but not superhuman. The praise is pleasant, but it doesn't rewrite your own honest assessment. It doesn't make you work less hard on the next thing. Now flip it. In the next meeting, a different project hits a snag. The same manager unfairly blames you in front of colleagues for a delay that wasn't your fault. The old self would burn with indignation, might lash out, would carry that resentment for days. The developing Stoic mind feels the initial sting of the unfairness, but it pauses. It separates the fact from the judgment. The fact is the manager made a critical statement. The judgment that this statement defines you is yours to reject. You might choose to correct the record later, calmly and privately, not to salvage your ego but to ensure accurate information. But your sense of self, your knowledge of your own effort and intent stays unshaken. The blame, like the praise, washes over you. It doesn't penetrate the core. So here's a prompt. Think back to the last significant piece of praise you received. Maybe for a presentation, a meal you cooked, how you handled a situation. Now ask yourself honestly, did that praise alter your own view of your effort? Did it make you think, I am truly excellent, and then maybe subconsciously lead you to ease up afterward? Or did you receive it, appreciate the kindness, and still maintain your own independent assessment of what you did well and what could be improved? That space between the external noise and your internal truth is where your unshakable mind lives. It listens to the world, but it answers only to its own principles. You choose the harder path sometimes, not because you want to suffer, it's for mental calluses. That's the old idea of ascesis. It's a Greek word. It means training, exercise. The Stoics weren't after pain, they were after proof that their comfort was just a preference. Not a necessity, proof their spirit was tougher than their situation. You step into mild hardship on purpose. You take away its power to intimidate you. You build confidence that you can endure. The philosopher Musonius Rufus put it plainly, practicing hardship is like an athlete's training. An athlete strengthens their body against opponents. We have to strengthen our soul against life's inevitable difficulties. How do you face an unexpected loss with grace if you've never practiced going without? How do you handle discomfort if you've spent your whole life running from it? This training is what separates fragility from resilience. History has clear examples. Cato the Younger, the Roman senator known for his integrity, he was famous for this. He would walk through Rome in all weather, no shoes, no tunic. He ate simple food. Drank cheap wine even when he could afford the best. He wasn't showing off. He was conditioning his mind, making sure that if fate took his wealth or his status, it would find a man who had already learned to be content with very little. His happiness wasn't in his possessions, it was built into his character. So what does this look like now in a modern life? It's small, deliberate choices. Choices that gently stretch your comfort zone, taking a cold shower for the last 30 seconds, not because you enjoy it, but to practice welcoming an unpleasant sensation without complaint. Skipping a meal occasionally, not for a diet, but to remember that hunger is a temporary feeling, not an emergency. Choosing to walk to the store in the rain instead of driving. To feel the elements and know you're okay. It might be sleeping on the floor for a night, to appreciate the comfort of your bed more deeply the next evening. The goal is never self-punishment. The goal is liberation. Each act is a quiet declaration. I am not ruled by my desire for ease. I can choose differently. This week, propose one tiny experiment to yourself. Maybe for one day, leave your phone in another room for an hour after work, or drink only water with your meals. Or take the stairs instead of the elevator. The practice itself is trivial. What matters is the observation. Notice the initial resistance, the little voice that says this is unnecessary, why make things harder? And then notice the quiet strength that emerges on the other side of that resistance. You've just shown yourself that you are more than your habits, that you have a will that can operate independently of your cravings. That is the foundation of an unshakable mind. It knows from experience that it can handle much more than it once feared. When a problem feels too big, you pull back. You pull way back, not just from the room, but from the sky itself, out to the stars. That's the Stoic view from above. It's a mental exercise. It shrinks your personal troubles down to size by setting them against the cosmos, against centuries. It's the direct answer to feeling trapped inside your own story, where every setback feels like the end of everything. Marcus Aurelius was the master of this. In his private writings, he kept telling himself to look from a higher place. He'd write things like, think of the vastness of time, all the human lives. How many cities have risen and then fallen? How many empires have turned to dust? And against that, your own brief moment, your own small concern, what is it really? The practice is simple in concept, profound in effect. You close your eyes, you imagine lifting out of your body, rising above your house. You see your neighborhood as a grid of streets. Then your city as a cluster of lights, your country as a shape on a globe, the earth itself, a pale blue dot in the black silence of space, and from there you pull back through time. You see your century as just one page in a history book that's miles long. You see all the people who ever lived with hopes and fears as vivid as yours, now gone. And all the people who will come after. Your own life, your current worry, exists in that pinpoint, that specific point in space and time. This isn't meant to make you feel insignificant in a bad way. It's meant to free you. It dissolves the ego's inflation, that argument with your partner, that project that failed, that social slight that's been eating at you. From this cosmic porch, it looks different. Not unimportant, but transient, a tiny ripple in an ocean. The practice shows you two things. First, the sheer scale of everything else. Your problem is not the center of the universe, even if it feels that way. And second, the truth of transience. This too, like everything, will pass. It will be forgotten. It will become part of that vast history, so apply it. Right now to something real. Take a personal conflict. You feel deeply wronged by a friend's action. Sit with that feeling for a second. Now begin the zoom out. See the two of you in the room where it happened. See that room in the building in the town. See your entire town's history. All the friendships and fallings out over generations. See your lifespan as a short line on a very long timeline. In 100 years, both of you will have reached your resting place. This event, this hurt, will be a forgotten detail. Does that mean the hurt isn't real now? No, but it means its power to define your entire reality is an illusion you can choose to see through. It puts the option for forgiveness or just letting go into a new, calmer light, or take anxiety about the future. A looming career decision feels paralyzing. Zoom out. See your career as one thread in the vast tapestry of human work. See the millions of people who have faced similar crossroads, their anxieties now silent. See the earth spinning through space, utterly indifferent to your promotion or your job title. This perspective doesn't tell you not to care. It tells you that the weight of ultimate consequence you're feeling is borrowed. You can put it down. You can make the decision from a place of reasoned choice, not from existential dread. Here's a brief exercise. You can do it anytime. Think of your most pressing worry right now. Got it? Now, imagine yourself looking back at this worry from 1 year in the future. How much will it matter then? Will you even remember the details? Now pull back further. See it from 10 years in the future. From there, what lessons might you have taken from this once the sting itself has faded? Finally, take the 100-year view. Picture someone, a stranger, learning about the early 21st century. Your name, your worry, your entire life story will almost certainly be unknown to them. It's all part of the anonymous flow of human experience. This exercise isn't about nihilism, it's about proportion. It returns you to your life not with despair, but with a quiet, steadying clarity. Your problems are real, but they are also small, and in that smallness there is space to breathe, space to choose your response with a mind that's no longer drowning in the close-up view. The universe is vast, and you are a part of it. Your brief, shining moment is both infinitesimal and infinitely precious. The view from above teaches you to hold that paradox lightly, and to live within it with a strange, unshakable peace. Your words get fewer, but they carry more weight and more warmth. That's a quiet sign. It means you're starting to apply Stoic virtue directly to the space between you and other people. Justice, in its social sense, isn't just about laws. It's about our duty to each other, and one of our primary duties is how we communicate. Our speech can build up or tear down. It can clarify or confuse. It can heal or harm. A Stoic mind, aiming for justice and benevolence, begins to treat words with the same care as actions. There's an old story, often attributed to Socrates, the triple filter test. Before you speak, you ask 3 questions. Is what I'm about to say true? Is it good or kind? Is it necessary? If it fails any of these, especially the last one, the Stoic practice is to stay silent. Epictetus gave his students a clear rule. Be silent for the most part, or speak only what is necessary and in few words. He wasn't advocating for being withdrawn. He was advocating for precision, for intentionality, to stop the leakage of energy and social trust through careless talk. Think of gossip, sharing a piece of information about someone who isn't there. Run it through the filters. It might be true, but is it good? Almost never. Is it necessary? Almost never. It fails 2 filters instantly. The Stoic sees gossip not as harmless social bonding, but as a small act of injustice. It uses another person's reputation as currency for connection. It builds a fragile bond on the back of someone else's dignity. Or consider complaint. The chronic venting about things outside your control. The weather, the traffic, a politician. Is it true that you're inconvenienced? Often, yes. Is it good or kind? Not really. It often spreads a mood of irritation. Is it necessary? Does stating the obvious problem actually move anything forward? Usually not. The Stoic alternative isn't to pretend everything is fine. It's to either accept the situation silently, or if it's within your influence, to speak with a purpose toward a solution. Instead of saying, "This traffic is unbearable," you might choose silence. Or you might say, "Looks like we're delayed. I'll let them know we'll be late." One statement is a dead end of frustration. The other is a necessary, neutral communication that moves the practical situation forward. This kind of speech builds profound trust. People start to learn that your words have integrity, that you won't waste their time with trivia or their energy with drama. That when you do speak, it's worth listening to. Your silence isn't cold, it's respectful. It creates space, and when you do offer words, they're often words of genuine encouragement, or clear insight, or honest feedback delivered with care. So here's a practical prompt. For just one day, become an observer of your own speech. Carry a small mental notepad. Don't judge yourself harshly, just notice. In conversations, in messages, ask those filters silently. Was that true? Was it good? Was it necessary? Notice how often speech is a reflex, a filler, a way to ease social anxiety. And notice the moments when you choose the purposeful, kind word or the purposeful, kind silence. The space you create with that choice is where your unshakable character speaks loudest without saying a thing. You have an offense button, and you realize you don't have to let anyone else press it. That's a real kind of freedom. Your peace isn't held hostage by what someone says or how they act. It comes down to this: offense is taken, not given. It's a judgment you make, a decision that someone has wronged you or shown you disrespect, and like any judgment, you can examine it. You can accept it or you can let it go. So the Stoic looks at the sting. When a comment lands, or a look, or some action that feels like a slight, you pause. You ask, is what they did within my control? No, their words belong to them. Then you ask, is my judgment that this is an offense actually true? A lot of the time, you'll see the offense depends entirely on your interpretation. Did they mean to cause harm, or are they just speaking from their own perspective, their own stress, their own lack of awareness? Marcus Aurelius put it clearly. He wrote, when people injure you, ask yourself what good or harm they thought would come of it. If you understand that, you'll feel sympathy, not anger. They offend out of ignorance, a mistaken belief that what they're doing is right or necessary or harmless. Seeing the action as an error in their thinking, not an attack on your worth, that changes everything. Take an online comment. A stranger writes something dismissive or cruel about something you shared. The reactive path is to feel that heat in your face, to fire back, to defend yourself. In that moment, you've handed them your emotional state. The Stoic path is to see the comment for what it is: a string of text typed by someone you don't know, coming from their own biases, their own mood, their own story. It's data about them, not a verdict on you. You can delete it, ignore it, or if there's a sliver of useful critique, extract that calmly. The rest is just noise. It can't injure your character unless you consent to the injury by believing their judgment. Or a family gathering. A relative makes a pointed remark about your career or your lifestyle for the 10th time. The old pattern is to seethe inside, to rehearse your argument, to let it ruin the rest of your day. The new approach is to hear the words and immediately classify them. This is their opinion, born of their values, their generation, their own fears. It is not a truth about my life. You might smile and change the subject. Or you might ask a curious question about why they feel that way. You disarm the remark by refusing to treat it as a weapon aimed at you. It becomes a statement about them, floating in the air, that you have no obligation to catch. In a professional setting, harsh feedback delivered poorly can feel like a personal attack. The developing Stoic mind separates the delivery from the content. The manager's tone, their frustration, that's their emotional state, their lack of skill in communication. The useful part, if any exists, is the kernel of truth about the work itself. You take that kernel, you leave the harsh packaging behind. You haven't been offended, you've been given poorly wrapped information. So here's a quiet exercise. Think of a common insult, a label, a phrase that tends to get under your skin. Maybe it's being called too sensitive or lazy or naive. Now mentally rehearse a new response. See the words coming toward you, and instead of letting them hit, see them as sounds, as signs that the speaker is confused or hurt or simply mistaken. Your internal answer is a calm, factual correction, not for them but for yourself. That is their perspective. It does not define me. Each time you do this, you strengthen your mental immune system. You're choosing to keep your offense button out of reach, protected by the simple knowledge that your character is yours alone to define. Every outcome, good or bad, makes you ask what it can teach you. That becomes automatic. It's the last step in turning life from a series of random events into a deliberate school for your character. There aren't any true failures here. Only feedback, and that feedback is the curriculum. The Stoics saw this. They believed providence, the nature of the universe, wasn't random or cruel. It was rational, and from a rational universe, even hardships arrive as lessons. Epictetus said it directly. Difficulties are what show men what they are. Troubles, like a tough trainer, come to wrestle with us. And in that wrestling, we discover our own strength. You're not being punished, you're being trained. Think about a botched presentation at work. Your slides fail, your voice shakes, the room feels cold and disinterested. The immediate story is one of humiliation, of failure. The learning mindset pauses that story. It asks what the feedback is. The feedback isn't that you're a bad person. It's that your preparation needed more dry runs. That technology should always have a backup, that connecting with an audience matters more than perfect slides. The event becomes a masterclass in preparation and presence. It gives you specific, actionable data for next time. The sting of embarrassment fades, but the lesson remains. It makes you more capable. Now flip it. A venture succeeds wildly. A project you lead gets celebrated. A personal goal is met beyond expectations. The learning mindset doesn't just bask in the praise. It asks a quieter, more sobering question. What does this success teach me? It teaches gratitude for all the conditions and support that made it possible. It teaches the profound lesson of impermanence, that this high feeling will pass and your worth can't be anchored to it. It might teach humility, showing you how much was due to luck or the work of others. Success, viewed this way, becomes a lesson in not clinging, in staying grounded. This applies to the deepest experiences of loss. the passing of someone close reshapes your entire world. The pain is real and vast, but within that space, if you listen, lessons emerge. It teaches the fierce, non-negotiable value of the time you have with people right now. It teaches you about your own capacity for grief, and in doing so, about your depth of love. It might teach you about community, about simple acts of kindness, about what truly provides comfort. The loss isn't a lesson in the sense of being deserved. It's a heartbreaking part of the human experience that, by its very nature, instructs us about love, temporality, and resilience. So here's a reflective prompt. Think of a recent experience you labeled as bad, a frustration, a mistake, a disappointment. Now set aside the label for a moment. Ask yourself, as if you were a gentle researcher studying your own life, what is one concrete lesson this experience offered? Did it teach you a boundary you need to set? Did it reveal a fear you need to face? Did it show you where your preparation was lacking, or where your expectations were unrealistic? Just one clear, specific takeaway. By articulating it, you perform the alchemy. You transform the event from something that happened to you into something that works for you. You stop being a passive student of life, waiting for the easy exams. You become the active scholar, deciphering the meaning in every single chapter, especially the difficult ones. You guard your inner peace the way you guard your schedule. Time is one currency, your mental energy is another, and it's more precious. It's constantly being spent, often on things you never chose. A Stoic mind starts to audit that. It applies that question, what's mine, what isn't, to your attention itself. The Stoics called it prosoch, a vigilant attention, directing awareness only toward what's virtuous, what's within your sphere. Managing your energy is the practice of that. It's choosing where your mind will live, because where your mind lives determines your life's quality. Seneca wrote about this. He didn't call it burnout. He called it the sickness of the crowd. He advised retreating into yourself, choosing companions wisely, avoiding the chaotic swirl of public opinion, trivial pursuits. He wasn't promoting isolation. He meant conscious selection. Your energy is finite. To pour it into the noisy, the draining, the vain, that bankrupts your capacity for what matters. For deep work, for calm reflection, for real connection, think about modern parallels, the pointless debate online. You know the one. A comment thread spiraling into anger over something no one can change. You feel the pull to jump in, to correct, to have the last word. The old self might spend an hour there, then emerge frustrated and drained. The energy-managing Stoic sees the trap. This debate is outside my control. It's provoking irrational passion. My attention is a resource. I will not spend it here. You close the tab. The relief is immediate. You've just protected a piece of your inner peace, or the draining social obligation, the event you feel you should attend, but you know the conversation will be superficial. The environment stressful. Saying no feels uncomfortable at first. It feels like you might miss out or disappoint, but the Stoic calculation is different. Will this gathering replenish me or deplete me? Will it align with my values or force me into a performance? If it depletes, a polite decline is an act of self-respect. It's allocating your energy to the connections that actually nourish. This extends to your information diet, the constant news alerts, the sensational headlines, the curated highlight reels of other people's lives. Each one is a tiny withdrawal from your emotional account. Curating what you let in isn't about ignorance. It's stewardship. You choose information that informs and empowers, not just what agitates and alarms. You turn off non-essential notifications. You designate times for checking in. You become the gatekeeper of your own mental space. So here's a prompt. Pause for a moment. List mentally the top 3 energy drains in your life right now. Not time wasters, energy drainers, the things that leave you emotionally depleted or mentally scattered. Is it a particular relationship, a specific recurring worry. A social media platform, the nightly news cycle, now choose just one of them. What's one small, concrete step you could take this week to mitigate that drain? For a draining person, it might be shortening your calls, setting a clearer boundary. For a worry, it might be writing it down, scheduling a time to think about it later so it stops hijacking your day. For social media, it might be deleting the app from your phone for a week. The step doesn't have to solve it completely. It just has to redirect a trickle of your attention back to yourself. You are the guardian of your inner citadel. A wise guardian knows that not every knock at the gate deserves an answer. Your circle of concern gets wider. You start to feel responsible for playing your part well in the human community. It's not about grand gestures, it's a quiet recognition that your actions ripple outward. That you're a thread in a social fabric, and the strength of the whole depends on each thread doing its duty. The Stoics had words for this: sympatheia. Oikeiosis, a sense of belonging to a common humanity. Our shared capacity for reason, that's the bond. So to act with injustice or cruelty, that isn't just a personal failing. It's an act against nature itself, against the very thing that connects us. Marcus Aurelius returned to this idea. In his private journal, he wrote, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." We are made for cooperation. To obstruct each other is unnatural. He wasn't speaking in abstract terms. He was the emperor, reminding himself that his power existed for the benefit of the people, not for his own indulgence. His duty was to serve the common good. For the rest of us, the duty is the same, only the scale is different. Your kingdom is your home, your workplace, your neighborhood, and this duty is performed for its own sake, not for thanks, not for recognition, but because it's the right thing to do. It's the expression of justice in everyday life. It turns ordinary moments into opportunities for moral action. Think of the small choices, the often invisible ones, holding the door for someone whose arms are full. That's a duty to ease another's burden. Listening patiently to a colleague who's struggling without immediately offering advice. That's a duty to honor their dignity. Choosing to buy from a local business because it supports your community, even if it costs a little more. That's a duty to the economic web you live within. Treating a service worker with the same respect you'd give a CEO. That's a duty to acknowledge their fundamental humanity. In these moments, you're affirming the bond. You're acting as a citizen of the world. Civic participation is another expression, voting thoughtfully. Serving on a jury, picking up litter in a park, these aren't just chores, they're how you maintain the shared space of society, how you pay rent for your place in the human community. Even in disagreement, the duty remains. You can oppose a policy or a person while still treating those who support them with basic human respect, because your duty is to the common good, which includes a well-ordered and civil society. So here's a prompt, a simple one. Tomorrow, look at your immediate environment, your home, your commute, your workplace. Ask yourself, what is one specific, concrete way I can fulfill my duty to others here? It doesn't need to be large. It could be taking on a household chore without being asked to lighten a family member's load. It could be offering genuine praise to a coworker for their contribution. It could be letting a car merge in front of you in traffic with a wave instead of speeding up. Perform that one act consciously as your role in the hive. Feel the quiet satisfaction that comes not from being seen, but from knowing you've woven your thread well. Your unshakable mind knows it's part of something larger. And it finds its strength in that connection. Death isn't something to dread, it's a clarifying fact. The one event completely outside your control, and yet your attitude toward it shapes every single day. The Stoic practice, Memento Mori, remembering you must die, it's not a morbid fixation. It's the final, most profound application of their philosophy. It takes the abstract end and uses it to illuminate the concrete now. The goal is a peaceful relationship with this inevitability, to drain the fear from it so that fear doesn't secretly govern your choices. Seneca wrote about this constantly. He said we suffer more in imagination than in reality, and no imagined suffering is greater than the fear of death. He argued that death is either a transition to a different state, which need not be feared, or it's a complete extinction, and then there's no one left to feel any harm. In both cases, it's not an evil. The terror is in the anticipation, in the stories we tell ourselves about the end. The Stoic work is to examine those stories, to see them for what they are, fictions that rob the present of its vitality. This acceptance isn't a grim resignation. It's a liberation. When you integrate the fact of your finitude into your daily awareness, it acts as a filter. It separates the trivial from the essential with ruthless efficiency. You stop postponing difficult but important conversations. You mend relationships not out of guilt, but because you see the precious fragility of the time you have. You take calculated risks on things that matter to you, because the safety of inaction becomes the greater risk, the risk of a life unlived. You stop saving your best china for a special occasion. You start using it on a Tuesday because the occasion is now. This doesn't mean living with frantic hedonism. The Stoic last day isn't a binge. It's a day lived with full presence and virtue. If you knew today was your last, would you waste it in petty anger? Would you cling to a grudge? Would you chase empty pleasures? Or would you seek a moment of quiet connection, an act of kindness, the satisfaction of work done well? That's the clarifying question. So here's the classic exercise. Sometime this week, perhaps tonight as you lie down to rest, let the thought enter your mind calmly. This could be my last day, not to provoke panic, but to prompt a gentle audit. Did I live today with intention? Did I treat the people I encountered with respect and kindness? Did I engage with my work or my passions fully? If the answer is no, you have a blueprint for tomorrow. And if the answer is yes, you can rest with a profound, unshakable peace. The remembrance of the end, held lightly, becomes the wisest guide for the middle. Choices stop being a debate. They become a quiet check against a short list you keep inside. That's your personal constitution, a set of principles. They don't come from your culture or your peers. They come from your own reasoned look at what it means to live well. For a Stoic, that code is built on 4 virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, self-control. They aren't just nice ideas. They are the definition of human excellence. The good life is a life lived by them. Epictetus argued this. He said the only true good for a person is a virtuous will. Everything else, health, wealth, reputation, those are just materials, to be used well or poorly. So your moral code is your manual for using those materials. It answers the basic question: what kind of person do I choose to be in this situation? That clarity turns gray areas into simpler decisions. You're not weighing endless pros and cons. You're checking an action against your principles. Does this align with courage? Does it uphold justice? Is it wise? Is it temperate? If it fails even one, the path is clear. You don't do it. The code simplifies. It cuts through the noise. Social pressure, short-term gain, fear of missing out. Take a business opportunity, lucrative. It would solve financial pressure, but it requires you to exaggerate your product's capabilities to a client. The old way involved rationalization. Everyone does it. The client won't know. We'll make it work later. But with a clear code that puts honesty under justice, the deliberation ends. You can't knowingly mislead. The opportunity is declined. There's no lingering angst. The principle decided. You might feel the pinch of the lost income, but you feel the deeper strength of an integrity that stays intact. Or a social situation. Friends are gossiping harshly about someone who's not there. Joining in would feel like belonging, like social bonding. Staying silent might make you seem aloof, but your code, informed by justice and kindness, says you don't build connection by tearing someone down. So you might gently change the subject or excuse yourself. You choose the minor social discomfort over the major violation of your principle. You walk away with your self-respect, which is a currency far more valuable than temporary social approval. This code is most powerful when no one is watching, returning the extra change a cashier gave you by mistake. Admitting you made the error on the report, even though you could let a teammate take the blame. Choosing to help a competitor who's struggling because your code values the good of the community over a narrow, tribal win. In those moments, you are your own judge, your own jury, and most importantly, your own witness. Passing that private test builds an unshakable confidence. So here's a direct challenge. Take a moment right now. Write down physically or mentally your top 3 non-negotiable principles. Make them simple, actionable, derived from those Stoic virtues. They might sound like, I will speak with honesty even when it's difficult. I will act with courage in the face of fear. Not recklessness, but the courage to do what's right. I will treat every person I encounter with fundamental respect and fairness. That's your short list. Your internal constitution. Review it in moments of uncertainty. Let it be the compass that never points anywhere but true north. People notice you're calm, or they just feel easier around you. That's the last sign, the real one. The work inside starts to show outside, not because you're trying to change anyone. It's because a soul that's in order, it gives off a sense of order. It's the opposite of trying to control how other people feel. You stop pouring your own chaos into the room, so the room itself gets quieter. The Stoics thought a wise person helps others just by existing, by being a living example of what's possible, proof that a person can face hard things with grace. That presence, that calm you carry, it becomes a quiet invitation. It doesn't preach, it doesn't ask for anything, it just is. And by being, it offers a sort of shelter. Take a tense meeting. Voices are going up, people are pointing fingers, the energy is frantic. You're sitting there, not checked out but steady. You listen. You don't cut in. When you do speak, it's measured. You see the frustration in the room without getting pulled into it. You might ask a question that cuts through the blame. And without you even planning it, the temperature starts to drop. Other people begin to match your tone. The talk moves from who's at fault to what can be done. You didn't give a speech about philosophy. You didn't tell anyone to relax. Your own composure became a stabilizer, a quiet center the chaos could rearrange itself around. Or a friend in crisis, locked in anxiety about what's next. They're talking fast, their thoughts spinning. You don't offer panicked solutions. You don't panic with them. You just sit with them. You give them your full, quiet attention. Your own breathing is steady. Your own posture is grounded. And in the space of your calm, their storm starts to lose some force. They feel heard, not judged, and feeling that stable presence beside them, they borrow a little of that stability without thinking. You haven't fixed their problem. You've given something more basic, a harbor in their emotional weather. This goes for a home, too. You walk in after practicing acceptance on a hard commute. You answer a child's frustration with patience instead of matching their intensity. You handle bad news without falling into despair. You're building the emotional environment. You're setting a tone, and the people who live with you, they start to line up with that tone without realizing it. Conflicts cool down faster. People bounce back quicker. It's not that you never feel stress or anger. It's that you've built the capacity to handle those feelings inside, so they don't spill out and become everyone else's issue. Your peace becomes a shared thing. So here's a last thing to consider. Look back at the past week. Your own emotional states, the frustration, the anxiety, the joy, the irritation. Now think about the people closest to you, your partner, your kids, your coworkers, your friends. How did your main emotional state affect theirs? Did your calm give them an anchor? Did your anxiety send out ripples of tension? This isn't about guilt. It's about seeing the link. Your inner world isn't a private room. It's a broadcast station sending out signals on a frequency everyone near you can feel. The final sign of a mind that can't be shaken is when those signals become a source of quiet strength for you and for the world you touch. These signs aren't a checklist. They're more like a map, a portrait of a mind turning toward what's real, learning to stand in the storm without being the storm. The shift is gradual. You might see 3 signs clearly, feel 5 others just starting. The rest might still be waiting in the distance, and that's the point. This is progressive. It's a practice, not a prize. The core message from those ancient thinkers is that an unshakable mind isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. Brick by daily brick, through the small, quiet choices, the pause before reacting, the deep breath in the frustration, deciding to see the obstacle as your training ground. It's built in the mundane moments far more than in the dramatic ones. This is the work of a lifetime. There's no final destination where you're finished. Only a path where you become more resilient, more clear, more free with each step. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who wrote reminders to himself at night, he left a line that captures this. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be one. The work isn't in perfect definitions or endless debate, it's in the being." In the daily doing, your character is your craft, and today is another day at the bench. So keep this portrait with you, revisit it in a month, in 6 months. Not to grade yourself, but to notice your own subtle growth. Which sign feels more familiar now? Which challenge has become a little easier? That self-assessment is itself a Stoic practice, a gentle, honest look at your progress. We'd love to hear from you. Which of these 25 signs resonates most with where you are right now? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's build a community learning from each other. If you found this useful, consider subscribing. We create new guides each week to help turn ancient philosophy into practical, everyday strength. Thank you for walking through this today. Your journey continues. Now go and be.